Hey everyone, welcome back to the Becoming Anchored podcast. We're so glad that you're here with us today. We're so excited. We've got a super fun guest. We're very thrilled to have her. We'll introduce her in just a minute, but we just wanted to kind of bring you back along the ride with us. So, we are a couple therapists in the Nashville area. We have a group private practice. We work with a lot of different presenting concerns such as body image, eating disorders, anxiety, depression. If you're local to the area, we'd love to connect with you. As you're listening to this podcast, if you realize that maybe you benefit from therapy, like I said, reach out to us. If you're not local to us, reach out to someone near you who is licensed. And just as a quick disclaimer, this is not meant to be therapy for you. It's really meant to just be informational and entertaining and just a conversation for you all to be a part of with us.
Thanks, Lauren. So this is my co-host, Lauren Jackson. My name is Laura Deneen, and we have the lovely Sarah Torti on the show with us today. And Sarah is so dear to us, and we're just so thankful for her wisdom. And so thank you, Sarah, for being here. If you're new to the show, Lauren actually had the idea of starting a podcast a little over a year ago, and we really are just here we talk about riding the waves of life with y'all. And so what that means is sharing in our humanness and humanity and vulnerability with y'all, some of the kind of life lessons that we've learned and some of our lived experiences that we might be going through in any given season of life. And then we also have the amazing privilege of sitting with clients on a regular basis, and what a gift that is. And so Sarah is also a therapist, and I know that she would fully agree with that as well. It's such sacred work. It's such important work. And so really, that's the purpose of this podcast, is to share in our humanity and also to offer hopefully some nuggets of wisdom. And so, Sarah, thank you so much for being here. We're so thrilled to have you. And we're just so excited to learn from you today.
Yes. Thank you guys so much. I'm just honored to share space with you guys. And I know we both, all of us are very passionate about a lot of the same things. So thank you.
Of course. And so at the end of the show, Sarah will be sharing more about her practice and ways to connect with her. But let's go ahead and get started. So today we are going to be talking about parenting and how to parent with the nuances of body image concerns that may arise in your children. And so let's just go ahead and dive right in. I know that this is a big topic. It's one I feel that needs to be addressed. And thank you, Sarah, for being here. And let's go ahead and just dive right in. So I know that all of us are parents. Sarah, I think that you are the longest term parent. I'm trying to find the word, but you've been parenting the longest, and then followed by Lauren, and then followed by myself. And so, I would love to hear a little bit more about you as a person, as a parent. I know that I have I guess she's almost 19 months at this point. Mm-hmm. Lauren has a little 2.5-year-old boy, and you have a little boy and little girl. Yep. This is just something I feel like a lot of parents in the practice, a lot of families that we work with, I get asked, how do I raise my children in this culture, in this world that we live in a way to almost be proactive? Maybe you're trying to prevent your child from developing poor body image or developing, God forbid, an eating disorder. Or maybe you are walking with your child through the throes of an eating disorder or perhaps disordered eating, and you're wanting more support. And so that's why you're listening to this episode today. So no matter where you are on your journey, we are here for it. And we're here to share some of the things that we've learned both as parents and as clinicians. And so, Sarah, I'm like just throwing the ball over to you. I'm like, what wisdom do you have?
Catch. Gosh, it's such a loaded and broad topic. And I think a few different things come to mind. I think that full disclosure, I have not successfully raised and have had my children leave the nest yet, but I think it starts young in just setting an intention whether it's just you as a mom, or ideally, if you have a partner, with your partner, what kind of culture do we want our home to have? I think that we have limited time where we have full control of what we pour into our kids before other influences start to infiltrate. And I think when it comes to bodies, having a unique family culture around one that values body diversity and a safe place to be loved, no matter what you look like, no matter what you feel like, no matter what other friends say. I think it's complicated. And I think a lot of it really starts beyond body image, but just the foundation of being a safe place for your kid. Totally. I think about, like, y'all know Dan Siegel's 4 S's. He talks about being seen, safe, secure, and soothed. And I think that even for just laying a foundation for a child's relationship with their body, those ingredients are so important for them to develop with you, but also if something does happen that's hard with their body, for them to be able to know you're a safe place to go to process it. Yeah, there's so much more I could say.
Yeah. I mean, and I'm with you. And gosh, it just begs the question of, like, yeah, how more specifically, I love what you shared. That word intention just feels so fundamental when we're talking about this foundation, right? Along with kind of this idea of, like, prepping your kids, that even if there is something hard that happens, and it's not if, right? It's when something hard that happens with their bodies, or maybe they overhear another child on the playground speaking poorly about their bodies, and how do they respond to that, right? And being able to come home and dissect that and process that with you, that does require such safety. And it's like, even it begs the question of, like, okay, how do we cultivate that at home? What does that tangibly look like for our listeners? I think as therapists, I don't know about y'all, but sometimes I can be like, oh yeah, like, we're creating safety, and clients will ask me, like, what that actually means and what that actually looks like, which is an important follow-up question.
Yeah. Yeah. And Sarah, I like the point that you make around, what if there's something that has to happen before body image, right? Because we have a body, and we are bodies, but, like, there's a lot more to us than that. And I think that that's such a foundational part in our relationship with our kids, and that kind of foundation we're setting, the culture of our family, the values of our family. And then, yeah, Laura, to your point, safety can mean a lot of different things to a lot of different people. And so you're kind of developing what that means in your family culture, and helping your children kind of grow in that, or, help you discover what that is for your family. Right. So, I think before we can instill or help develop in our kids what healthy body image is, I think we have to have a relation, like a good, safe relationship with them first. I think that's, like, so, important.
Lauren's talking about that, like, that attachment, right? That we do so much work around in the therapy space. That's just so pivotal and so important. Yeah. I mean, I think one of the things that I encourage parents that I'm working with, or families, or one of the grief components that I'm doing with maybe older clients as a clinician, is really talking through even their own relationship with their body, like my relationship with my body, before I'm even talking about Marianne's relationship with her body, right? So that's my daughter. And of course, we want her to have healthy body image. But I think it really starts, like, when I'm thinking about even that question, Sarah, like, what makes this environment safe? It's first and foremost, like, looking at, as parents, this is my challenge to you, what your own relationship is like with body, with self, capital S, right? And then I think this goes along with like your relationship with food too, because we need food and hydration and all the things to nourish ourselves. But yeah, I mean, that's really the first kind of tangible tool, because I certainly want our listeners today to have practical takeaways from today's session.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's really the first fundamental piece that goes into creating safety in the home, I think, at least, is challenging parents to do their own work around how they're speaking about their own bodies. And with that also comes how they're speaking about other people's bodies, because like, kids are such sponges. Like I can tell Marianne is just watching everything I do. Like she wants to wear my headbands. Lauren, I know you'll appreciate this because you're wearing a headband today and you're a headband guru, but she loves when I wear headbands, and she's like trying to put it on her little baby head, and it's so cute. But yeah, I mean, she's watching everything I'm doing at 19 months old, which is wild. And so I know that y'all have some thoughts on what I'm sharing, but that feels just so important. Is like, hey, we've got to work on our own body image as parents first before we can even ask our children to have healthy body image.
Totally. Yeah. I'm thinking about even as a parent to a toddler, how sometimes I'll catch myself in language I'm using to describe my son, like with other people or when he's around, because, you know, when they're toddlers, they're growing so fast and they're changing so quickly. And I swear he's been going through this growth spurt, and he just looks, I feel like every week he looks like a different little person in the face. And it's like, stop growing up. But I'll like find myself being like, oh my gosh, he's getting so big, or, you know, just language that I'm using that I find myself kind of wanting to pause and be like, is that helpful? Like, is that actually helpful language to use? Is there something different that I could say that could also place value on how he's growing and he's learning and he's developing in a way that will keep body neutral? Because Laura, like you said, they literally soak up every single little thing.
Everything.
It's wild. It's so wild. So, and I'm speaking too from being a boy mom. And I think a lot of the times maybe in our culture and with body image and whatever, we think that, only girls struggle with body image, or only females, or you only have to worry about that with daughters. And, you know, just with the work that we do, we know that that's just not true. We know that body image, negative body image, eating disorders, disordered eating, mental health, whatever, it doesn't discriminate. And so being mindful of that, even with my 2.5-year-old son, just feels really significant and important to me. And so even like just typical language we use around, you know, talking about like a toddler's body, I find, and, you know, I find that I pause when I use some of that language and want to be mindful of, he's hearing this, his ears are hearing this. Yeah. So,
Gosh, I think it's so tricky, right? Because I think we're in developing like your own family's culture for how we view certain language, that at school or out in the world, they might have a different experience, right? And I know in our home, one thing we have really tried to do is normalize words like big, fat, larger body as just normal parts of the beautiful world that we live in. And so I think like representation does matter in what is happening in your social circles, the kind of books that you read, how you talk about bodies, and how there's not just like exposure, but appreciation, right? For the differences, for the complexities of it. And yet your kid might still be getting a different message outside. And so how do we bridge that gap to have some of those conversations, obviously in like age appropriate ways over the course of time? We were driving in the car the other day, and my 6, almost 7-year-old boy, there was a turkey on the road, and he was like out with his feathers, and he was like, look at that fat turkey, and like just like celebrating the wonder of it. And you know, I think that that shift hasn't happened yet, right? And y'all know, just living in this world with such fat phobia and negative attitudes about different shapes and sizes, like it's only a matter of time before they start to pick up on things. I think another thing too that feels important with body image is just, as a mom, as a therapist, like widening the lens, in that it's also about embodiment. Like embodiment knows no size limit, and helping your child experience the wonder of their body through their senses, and nurturing and growing an appreciation for not just the functionality of their body, but just the beauty of feeling the sun on their face. And I think even those little things start to really build, wow, this is so cool. So cool to be in a body. And I think there's a million ways you can do that, right? But I think it's like how you model moving and being in a body in a way that's alive and fun. And like with what you're talking about, Laura, that requires doing some deeper work, right? We all have a story that we carry about our bodies, and what embodiment's a lot about, like what you were allowed to be too, you know? And so, yeah, it's just complicated, right?
Yeah. 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 And I love what you talked about, using this word embodiment. And of course, this can mean so many different things to so many different people, but it is countercultural in the sense of, we are taught, and I think I actually learned this from you, Sarah, but we're taught to self-abandon, right? Which is essentially like, if I'm here, if you're watching this on YouTube, right? Like I'm making a circle with my hands and I kind of walk away from myself. And that can mean so many different things, whether it's using disordered eating behaviors or eating disorder behaviors, or not grabbing a sip of water if I'm thirsty, or not going to the restroom if I need to go to the bathroom. So there's lots of different ways that we are taught, and I would say even encouraged, to self-abandon. And the beautiful part of embodiment is really like coming home to ourselves. And so back to this like circle of my hands, right? It's like, I walk back home to myself. And of course, this is an analogy that I'm using, but it's really looking at, how do I walk back home to myself? Am I worthy of getting my needs met? And that is, of course, all of the body image work as well. It's not just like what I see in the mirror. And so it's that deeper kind of component that you're referencing, Sarah. Yeah. So good.
And I think that takes like a lot of practice, right? Like a lot of mindfulness skills, a lot of awareness. There's Cynthia Bulick she's at a UNC. She's done a lot of work with eating disorders, written books. She wrote a book many moons ago. I think it's called Woman in the Mirror. And she has an activity in there where she has you like map out your house, like each room of your house, and explore some of the body narrative in each room. And I think about that. I think about that as a mom, as a therapist, just not just whether it be around the mirror or food, but like, what do I notice in my body? In each space in my house that I go, what am I creating for my child in this place? Right? I think it's like, not to like put pressure on everyone to like light some incense in your room or whatever, but I think there's a lot of layer and a lot of space for play and permission to, if these are things you're not thinking about it, to start now. Like there's small ways to start looking at it through a wider lens. Yeah.
Lauren actually uses that kind of framework for a lot of the work that she does. She quite frequently talks about opening perspective, and I've actually snagged that from you, Lauren. I used it the other day with a client, and I thought of you. I meant to tell you that. I'm like, let's open perspective, and I'm like, I'm so Lauren right now.
Like it.
Yeah. Yeah. But it's really that idea of like the flexibility in thought processes and just even our worldview and opening up some of that perspective versus like this diet culture and fat phobia and need to kind of always be changing something about our bodies. Those are all the messages that we get really on a daily basis. And so with that comes like starting to be aware of, I think that's one piece that I'm encouraging parents to work on as well, is like just starting to be aware of how many things you're interacting with on a daily basis, whether that's your social media feed or like you're in the line at the grocery store. I bring this example up a lot. I have like a lot of feelings about it, but it's like you're seeing the magazines and they're advertising some new fad diet or however many kind of interactions. I think just starting to raise awareness for your own self as a parent and how your child might be experiencing different forms of diet culture and how that might be connected to body image concerns or that kind of thing just can be something to now work
and that
on.
starts so young. Like, I think like even with food, maybe even more than bodies, right? Which it all kind of is woven together. But, you know, like how people talk about good food, bad food, and messages that kids get, like, are they allowed to have this lollipop? Well, yeah, we eat a lot of sugar in our house. Like, you know, I think, it's helping people develop more critical thinking, right, about their exposure of certain inputs. And I think that's necessary in order to really build that family culture, family philosophy on doing things a little bit differently.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think something that is pretty cool about, and hopefully this feels encouraging to, you know, people who are listening, because it feels encouraging to me, about being, you know, a parent to anybody, but like especially young ones, is the opportunity that we do have to help to really encourage them to, our little ones, to stay connected with themselves, or to stay, or to not, Laura, like you said earlier, self-abandon. Because I think, or I wonder, and I wonder what you guys think about this too, is the more that we are disconnected from ourselves or abandoned from selves, probably the less positive or compassionate our body image is. Like, we probably don't have the greatest view, you know, emotionally, physically, whatever, of our bodies than when we are like fully connected, fully embodied, fully aware of what's going on and what our needs are. And so I think it's cool that that we can really, part of that kind of family culture, the way we use our language and the way we talk about our bodies, and then how we help our kids talk about their bodies, is we can really foster this, like, hey, like, let's stay connected to ourselves. You can have needs. You can cry. I hear you. You can be upset. You can need to go to the bathroom right now, and I'm going to take you to the bathroom right now. Right. It's like just like little things like that. But it's like these little moments really are instilling this sense of like trust with, oh, I can trust myself when I need to do this thing, or when I feel this way, and I can get that need met. Which I think then down the line does foster a more positive image, if you will, of body. So I think that's cool, right? That like, even if we didn't necessarily get that growing up, or if that wasn't part of our family culture growing up, that's something that we really do get the opportunity to help our kids learn and grow in. Because, you know, I mean, when we're born, I think we're born pretty embodied. Like, I think that's kind of naturally how we come into the world, just like crying and I need this and this is how I feel. And so just this, I just think it's really cool that like we can continue that. Like we can continue like really helping them like grow that muscle and stay really connected with themselves. And that just feels super encouraging to me.
Yeah, we talk a lot about like hope on the podcast, right? And it's just like encouragement, hope. Those are interchangeable in some ways, right? And yeah, I love what you're sharing, Lauren. And I do agree with this being born embodied. just to speak to that, the other day we went to dinner with Marianne, and then we went to Jenny's ice cream afterwards, and she pushed it away when she was finished. And sorry, I've got something in my throat. And Sean remarked, he was like, oh my gosh, she is such an intuitive eater. And it's so funny. Like, it's just, and we love Jenny's ice cream, but just to see her have that experience of like having had enough and full permission. We got like quesadillas and guac for dinner, I think at Mojo's. And then we went to Jenny's afterwards, but full permission to like eat to her heart's content and then push it away when she's finished. And so I do agree with you that we are born embodied, and then somehow along the way we get lost, and there's a lot of grief and of course pain and suffering that comes with that. But I love this piece of encouragement, and I would add to that hope that you're offering our listeners today.
Yeah.
That's important, right? Like just all of our capacity to continue to learn and grow and change as we're growing ourselves, supporting our kids, and I think even being a student of our kids and really studying their unique expressions of themselves, right? Like I have a little one that has some sensory challenges. And so some of that embodiment piece is there's some deficits there that we're trying to support him with. But like, again, being that space that I think as a parent, always just being willing to stay curious and, whether it be with stuff going on in their bodies, stuff that's happening that you see impacting them, kind of going back to the attachment stuff, right? Like the withness and safety is hopeful, and we're gonna mess up. And then there's repair, right? Like I think that's a big part of safety too, is when we do mess up, as we will, that they also know that there's still repair there, and that connection isn't lost, and they don't have to be a certain way in order to be secure in our love and connection.
Yeah. Gosh, yes. And I know Lauren does such a beautiful job of this too, just with her clients, and one thing that she'll do is like, hey, we have safety right here in this room. And I understand that you may not have experienced, safety outside of here, or maybe have had not as many experiences as we would like you to have had. And we're going to start here. And I think that's such a beautiful kind of picture to hold just even in our parenting journeys as well. Like, and repair. And as a recovering perfectionist, I'm like, I don't want to mess up. But I also know that messing up, like logically, I know that messing up as a parent already has happened and will happen again. And so I love this kind of piece of hope that you're offering our listeners as well. And yeah, I think this worthiness and lovability and enoughness in the context of body image is really important too, because I know that all three of us have had and currently have clients that have felt that they are not worthy of love, unfortunately, from their primary caregivers because of the way they look. And like, how horrific is that? And so that I think is just really an important message that you're talking about today, Sarah, is like, hey, no matter what you look like and no matter what your body shape or size is, you are loved and you are enough and you are worthy of love. And there's a lot of grief if you maybe are a parent and you didn't have that, like Lauren was talking about, in your family of origin to begin with.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, a lot of sadness. And there's also an opportunity to always course correct, right? So if you're someone listening and you have said these things to your kids that are maybe hurtful or harmful, we can always, like Sarah's talked about, we can always course correct. And there's so much encouragement in that as well. Mm-hmm. And so the purpose of this podcast is certainly not to shame you or to, ridicule or any of that. It's more to offer a different perspective, like we've talked about. Yeah. Thank you, Sarah, for your time today. It has just been a joy talking to you. And I know that we could have like you back for part 2 on parenting with body image and all the different ways that is important.
There's so much.
Yeah. Yeah. So thank you for being here. I'm curious, before we wrap with homework and an affirmation, how can our listeners find you? Anything that you want to highlight or anything that you want to share about yourself?
Yeah. So I have a website, sarahtorti.com. And then you can find me on Instagram. That's kind of a newer endeavor at Sarah Torti Counseling. My practice is in Franklin, so a little south of you guys. Yeah.
Amazing. Y'all, Sarah is just the cream of the crop, and she is so wise and has been such a gift to me. I know to Lauren. I cannot speak highly enough of Sarah and the work that she does. And I am just forever grateful for you, Sarah. And so I'm so glad that you've been on the show today, and we'll certainly have you back. So thank you so much.
I'd love that. Thank you guys.
Yeah. So Sarah, I think, is actually going to close with homework, and then Lauren is going to close with our affirmation. So Sarah, what homework do you have for our listeners?
Yeah. I would encourage, if a lot of this stuff is resonating with you, or if you're trying to be more intentional about implementing some of these things, to sit down and write out just core values, core descriptions of what your family culture, your philosophy on how we view bodies in our family, whether it be accepting, nurturing, self-compassionate, whatever comes up. But just, I think there's power in like putting words to paper with it.
I love that so much. I'm like, I'm going to do that tonight. Like with Sean, I'm going to be like, hey, honey, we have some homework from Sarah. And
I think it's allowed to evolve, right? Like as your kids' needs change or new things come up, I think it's allowed to change and grow with you.
Lauren, what's our affirmation to hold on to today?
Oh gosh. You know, Laura, what you were saying earlier, I felt like was a beautiful affirmation, just how we're all, no matter what we look like, we're all worthy of love and safety and connection. And so I want to just repeat that to everybody listening, whoever is listening, no matter what you look like, or your shape, or your size, or your color, or whatever, you are so deeply worthy of love and safety, right? Safety's been a big theme in our conversation. And you are capable of creating that environment for your family and for your kids. So I'm going to leave that with you guys.
Yeah. What a sweet time today. Thank you, Sarah, for being here. Thank you,
guys.
Thank you for being on the show. And we will see you next time for the Becoming Anchored podcast. Y'all take care.
Bye.
Bye. Bye.